We're going to talk about a subject very dear to my heart as a bona fide Americanized social democrat. My love for Labor Day. Labor Day is around the corner. It's Labor Day weekend, and it's my one of my favorite holidays, right next to Christmas. Love Christmas. I love, and it's not just about long weekends, friends and gatherings, parties, going to the beach, picnics, backyard barbecues, or the unofficial end of summer. It's more than that. Although Labor Day is a good enough reason to celebrate it, Labor Day came about because of struggle by American workers. I'm going to give you just a very condensed history, and it's not 100% like all there is to it. There's more caveats, but we're playing with time. So I'm going to give you my take on quickly on how Labor Day came into being in the United States. There's more than what I'm going to say, and that's fine. But I'm just going to give you the gist of how we got Labor Day. On May 1st, 1886, roughly 100,000 workers walked off their jobs across the USA. And they walk off the job in a general strike demanding for an 8-hour workday for every employee living in the United States. It was one of the few really big general strikes this country ever had. And it'd be nice if we could have something like that again. But it was over an issue that was considered radical in the 19th century. But today, the 8-hour workday is not considered radical. Most people are okay with it. In 1889, the newly formed Socialist International, that is the Worldwide Federation of Democratic Socialists, Social Democratic, and Labor parties, which still exist to this day, declared May Day as an international holiday back in 1889. And of course, down the road, it remains pretty much the staple of all people who identified themselves in that political tradition. Whether you consider yourself a socialist, a social democrat, a democratic socialist, even on the authoritarian left, if you consider yourself a Marxist-Leninist, a Trotskyite, Stalinist, or Maoist, if there's one thing that all these groups have in common, and is their unified support for May Day, or what is kind of known as International Labor Day on May 1st. And it's unofficial here in the United States. It's not even recognized at all in the United States on May 1st, but it's sort of quasi-recognized as Labor Day. And it came into being when conservative Democratic President Grover Cleveland was concerned over having May 1st as that day to celebrate it. He compromised with the first Monday of September, and he signed that into law in the year 1894. So there you have it. That's how Labor Day came into being in the United States. And it's a holiday, whether you're pro-union like me, or even if you're anti-union and you really believe in extreme cutthroat capitalism. I mean, everybody pretty much enjoy having that time off, even if they don't fully agree with the tenets or the basis of Labor Day. They enjoy that time off. Anyhow, I'm going to fast forward to after World War II. There was a lot of labor struggles between the 1890s and up until to around the dawning of World War II. And I will, and on this channel, I will be discussing these things as I look back in history occasionally, like I like to do. So we're going to fast forward to after World War II. in 1947, the Taft-Hartley Act came into being as a legislation, which meant that states are allowed to decide whether they're going to be a closed shop or a right to work state. And the thing about it is that right to work was kind of designed to destroy the unions. Now, it may have been unsexy or to say I'm against unions, they should be banned. But Taft-Hartley is like the next level. And unfortunately, it pretty much every state in the South became right to work states. And so that was the beginning of how the unions started to weaken. But still, at that time, the unions were about 1/3 of the U.S. Workforce. You could go and get jobs up north, in industrial Midwest, some of the western rural states, in California. You can get a unionized job. So it was just something that was kind of designed and resonated just in the South and a handful of rural western states that had right to work. The rest of the country was relatively closed shop. Sometimes some states will initiate right to work laws and then it will be quickly rescinded. But around the time when Reagan became president, the strike of the air traffic controllers, he basically threatened for them to lose their job permanently if they don't report back to work, and that became the beginning of the slippery slope to the unions starting to die off. I'm not being partisan. I know I blame Robert Taft and Reagan, and they do get a lot of blame. But remember, Bill Clinton came along, and Bill Clinton and his worthless triangulation strategy, the era of the Democratic Leadership Council, what I call the Reaganization of the Democratic Party, and Bill and Hillary Clinton, I hold responsible for the Democratic Party being the sewage that it is to this day, with their basically co-opting a lot of the corporate agenda and basically giving the middle finger to the FDR New Deal tradition. He gave us NAFTA. In 1998, the Glass-Steagall was repealed, which basically allowed deregulation to take place, and that was something that was blessed by Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich. You fast forward to the year 2008, Barack Obama's campaign, and he campaigned as too centrist for my take at the time. And my problem with Obama was he wasn't left wing enough. But the thing about Obama is one of the best things he did, and I wish he would have kept that promise. He campaigned for the Employee Free Choice Act, which would actually undermine right to work. While it would not get rid of the right to work laws, it'll make it easier for unions to organize. So even in a state that's right to work, the numbers will favor for unionization of workers to increase. Well, once Obama became president, he decided he was going to do like his Democratic predecessor, Bill Clinton, and become another DLC corporate shill for the establishment. And you never heard any more talk about the Employee Free Choice Act. So what happens? Well, during the Obama presidency, unions not only weren't growing, it started to decline because several state governors and some of the outside of the South started initiating right to work laws. Most notably, Governor Tommy Thompson of Wisconsin, who to me is one of the biggest son of a bitch around. I despise that man. I would say that even worse than Donald Trump in the 2016 primaries, I would say that Tommy Thompson, for that very reason, was one of the worst Republicans running for president. And thankfully, he did get the nomination. Tommy Thompson was a model for other state governors to initiate right to work laws. So Michigan became a right to work state. Indiana became a right to work state. West Virginia became a right to work state. Kentucky became a right to work state. You see where it's going. And it's crazy what's going on. And Rand Paul, Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, The problem with Rand Paul, people like Rand Paul, is while he sucks for his economic libertarianism, but he's great on things like civil liberty matters, like the war on drug and police brutality. He acknowledges that as a problem, and he's against the wars abroad. On foreign policy, Rand Paul is relatively decent, but where Rand Paul runs short is on issues with economics. Rand Paul favors a national right to work law. And the problem with people like Rand Paul and the Republican Party is that the Republicans take what is shitty about Rand Paul and his father, Ron Paul, but they don't want to embrace what is good about libertarianism. The government leaving people alone when it comes to their private lives, or areas related to right to privacy or free expression, or or things like the drug war. Where Rand Paul and his dad, Ron Paul, are actually correct. That's where the Republicans don't want anything to do with it. So they embrace the shitty things about the Pauls, but they don't embrace the good. And what gets me about this anti-union sentiment, because one of the big stinks I got against the Republican Party in modern times is their strongest condemnation of unions. Now the Democrats are not much better in a lot of ways. I mean, after the civil rights came into being, and it was a somewhat settled issue, you had gubernatorialships and state legislatures in the South that were predominantly Democratic. You would think they would have gotten rid of the right to work laws. Where were they? And now in the South, you got pretty much Republicans run much of the state governments down there. And so they're not going to get rid of the right to work laws. And then if the Democrats regain a governorship in a Democratic in a southern state or regain the legislature, you don't see them trying to get rid of right to work laws or trying to enact their own version of the Employee Free Choice Act within that state. And with one part of the Republican coalition that makes the backbone, the ideological bedrock of the Republican Party, are the what I would call the traditionalists, the religious right, the social conservative, the evangelicals, and they hate unions as a general rule. You watch a TV evangelist on TV, they talk smack about unions, whether it's Pat Robertson, whether it's Jerry Falwell when he was alive, or whether it was John Hagee, or these people preaches against labor unions in their sermons. Here's the thing about unions. All the religious right and social conservatives that hate unions and they want America to go back to the way it was in the 1950s, and they don't like the fact that stores and shopping malls and places of commerce are open on Sunday. Well, if the unions were to make a comeback, you might see a lot of places more closed on a Sunday. You might actually see more families spending time together, and the family values that they argue about. Well, here's the thing: they go and argue for these things, but then they embrace the worst of corporatism that makes this country decline in a lot of ways in its social strata. So if the religious right folks, especially the ones who are like MAGA and the only good Democrat in their eyes is a Democrat that's defeated on election day, and voting Republican is a way to be closer to God and for Jesus to set you into heaven. Well, supporting policies that harm workers, which Republicans, their economics, and again, I know I sound like I'm trouncing too much on the Republicans. A lot of areas, the Democrats are not much better. Problem is their attitudes and the party's attitudes toward things that would actually make it easier for traditionalism to take place. Now, when I argue for traditionalism, I don't mind the traditionalism. Socially conservative people living their lives in a socially conservative way. I I'm okay with that. I'm also okay with people who are libertine, living their lives in a libertine sort of way. I am a left libertarian or a civil libertarian in that regard, or a social libertarian. Um, I want the government to leave you alone in your bedroom. I want the government to leave you alone when you're expressing your beliefs. I want the government to leave you alone and let you have a right to smoke marijuana. I want the government to leave you alone for you to go and say what you want on social media, even if I disagree with it, because I'm a free speech absolutist. And so we're running across a situation where when the right complains, and you hear it on Fox News around November and December, or the war on Christmas, or if you hear around March and April, the war against Easter, well, you never hear them talk about the war, the ongoing war on Labor Day, and the ongoing war against ordinary Americans, against workers. Really? So, I want y'all to think about this Labor Day, wherever you stand, and we got to go and bring back the real meaning of Labor Day. And it's really funny when I hear traditionalists talking about going back to the 1950s. And my good friend Dwight Welch, who is a UCC pastor up in Montana, told one evangelical one time, if you want to see the 1950s return, let's have it the way it used to be when unions were 1/3 of the workforce in this country. And people had rights that slipping away for the past almost past half a century. That evangelical didn't have shit to say. So there you have it. Social conservatives. You want traditionalism to come back? You got to support organized labor. You got to support the trade unions. But my class reductionist side of me says that I don't mind you living a socially conservative life, but you leave people that you disagree with alone in the process. If you like what you heard, you can press like. If you dislike it, you can press dislike. Either way, comment. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to say that if you have an issue you're very passionate about and you have a platform, utilize it, because we're the muckrakers of our time. And most importantly, as I said, I want you to like, dislike, share, do your own platform, and comment. But I also want you to subscribe to this channel if you can, and because I'm trying to make this channel a serious player, because I mean it's not about me, but I do think I have something to offer. So please, if you can, subscribe. You'll be helping me out a lot, and well, my channel rather. And until next time, peace, and Bernie Sanders for president in the year 2024. And no, I wasn't kidding when I said it. I'm thirsty.